check.
So I wanted to show you all some of the things that are coming up in our spring garden this year. I mean, there's so much happening. I'm not even going to begin to show you what's going on with the chicken and the pig garden at the moment. I'm just going to show you what we'll be working on this side of the garden. So this spot here is absolutely beautiful. You've got the view right in front of you, the garden just behind you. But this area here has a lot of fertility in it, but isn't really being used for anything. So I've laid down some newspaper and I'm actually going to turn this into a watermelon wall. So I'm going to get my watermelons to climb up as far as they go. So I didn't actually share the making of these, but I put up 3 trellises at different points in the yard where I know they won't shade each other out, but they'll get plenty of sunlight as well as they need it. They're going to be for our cucumbers. I haven't thought about whether I want squash in there as well, although I'm probably going to have my squash and my zucchinis either in this garden here or where the pigs have been working. We have moved the pallets over here and attached them to this garden. My plan is to turn this into a bean wall, and I've got, I think, 5 different kinds of beans so that there's plenty of color, variety, and I think this will look really stunning. You'll be able to see it straight from the house and also as you walk through the garden. So this potato patch is still here as well, and I've got my potatoes growing. They've been growing a lot slower. I'm not sure if that's because they were deeper in the ground than the ones up at the top of the property, or whether this spot just doesn't get nearly as much sun, which I think is the issue. But they've been growing. They will probably be the next thing that I harvest after those ones at the top. And I also have set up another little garden bed here. As with all of our gardens, we start off by putting a tarp or some cardboard down. This starts to kill the grass that's there and starts to loosen up the soil and encourage beneficials like worms to come through and start working the soil. And then it makes it a lot easier to get the garden started from there. Like our chook garden was so easy. So this is actually going to be 1 pumpkin patch, I think. It could also possibly be more potatoes, but yeah, I guess we'll decide when that time comes. With all of these fruit trees as well, I've actually gone ahead and planted some pumpkin seeds throughout them. Pumpkin loves to go down a hill, so that's why I picked these spots. I'm also going to be doing potatoes underneath them as well. Potatoes take a really long time, so my plan this springtime is with things like potatoes, onions and garlic is just to plant them underneath wherever there's a little bit of space. It's also just a bit of an experiment to see what grows best where. During winter time, I actually planted my onions and my garlic in this bed here, not realizing that onions and garlic takes, I think it's like 9 months to mature, which is a super long time, and actually means that this is now not going to be usable for springtime, most likely all of summertime as well, and this garlic won't be ready till autumn time. So I've kind of shot myself in the foot in that way, but that's okay. I've planted them in, I love them here, and I'll work around them. But knowing that now, I will make sure that as I'm planting out other things in the spring garden, I'll just be kind of popping in garlics and onions just throughout the garden where there's some space. Garlic is really good at deterring like bugs that you don't want in the garden. That's why it's a really good companion plant, because the smell of it actually tells other bugs that want to come in and eat all your delicious vegetables. The garlic smell puts them off and lets them know there's nothing good around. So planting it around in different spots is going to help to protect all the other veggies that I want to keep for myself. The last spot I wanted to talk about is the compost pile and what's happening with it now that we've moved the compost onto our new garden. So this space here is now super fertile and ready to be planted in, but it doesn't get a lot of sunlight, so that's a big issue, which means that anything we plant here, it's going to get some of the morning sun up there, but then as the sun moves behind the trees, it's pretty much shaded for the rest of the day. So my plan here is maybe putting in some greens, so things like tatsoi, spinach, maybe even some of my root vegetables like carrots, garlic, onions. So I think that's what the plan is with this area here. Full of nitrogen, so it's going to support those root vegetables in growing, and they don't require a lot of sunlight, which is why they do so well in wintertime. Yeah, I think that's all I can really do with this. I mean, if you think there's anything else I can be growing in a spot that gets hardly any sunlight, is really shaded out by trees and everything around, but is super fertile and rich in nitrogen, then let me know. Just found a little oregano growing. How lovely. There's some more here. I love finding oregano growing because it's a really good cover crop. So in spots where you're not planting anything, and if you don't want grass and weeds to come up, then planting something like oregano, it smells amazing. It's really good at deterring bugs that you don't want, similar to the garlic. It puts off such a strong smell that it tells them there's nothing else around. So whenever I find it, I think I'm going to transplant it in places outside of my garden beds because it does take over, but I'm going to plant it around my garden bed so that it smells good. So I'm going to attempt to plant some corn and see if that works or not. It's pretty rooted here because of all the trees, so I don't know if this will work. Be around there somewhere. So I'm digging down into the soil and it is so beautiful and black and goes down so deep. But the reason I'm digging a hole is because the worm towers are supposed to be empty and then you actually fill them with food scraps. So it's just another way to compost. It's kind of like having a worm farm, but right in your garden, so all the nutrients go straight back into your soil and feeds all the other plants around it. So really amazing. But don't worry, all of the soil that I'm digging out is going to go straight into my seedlings, which I'll be growing for springtime. You are supposed to have these covered up, so I'm going to have to think of a way to cover up the top. That's just to deter away flies, because they're worm towers, they're not fly towers, so you want to keep it closed so that the flies aren't trying to get the rotten food. I'm like a lot of you because I prefer to start my seeds straight into the ground. It's a lot less hassle. But this year I want to trial doing some seedlings as well, probably just because I'm impatient and I want to start planting. But also at the same time, it's important to experiment to see what works best. And if this gives the seeds a head start in life, then great. If it's all the same or nothing comes up, then that's a learning. I'm making sure this year that everything is labelled, especially because I'm doing seedlings. I don't want to forget what anything is like I did last year and kind of be guessing what's going where. I'm super curious to find out if I sow seeds far too early and it's still too cool outside, Will they still germinate when the season comes? Like when it does warm up, will they still come up? Or have I just lost a bunch of seeds? So that'll be interesting to learn. I have a feeling when the time is right, they'll know and they'll come up.